Hello, everybody, and welcome to another classroom video. Today, I want to share a little memory. Right now that we are in pandemic, we are suffering from the COVID-19 or coronavirus pandemic. Well, for Mexico, it is not the first time that this happened. And I'm not talking about the smallpox pandemic that devastated the Aztec Empire. No, I am not that old. But today I want to remind a little about the influenza pandemic, the H1N1, H1N1 influenza pandemic that devastated Mexico 11 years ago. And right now we are just celebrating 11 years from those times. It was really strange because we were practically having our normal life just as right now. In this case, it was not a global situation, right? It was not a worldwide situation, but it was a very local situation, right? I remember that the news were spreading the thing that it was a flu uh, running in the water. So they were telling about this caution measures. Then it exploded into a massive hysteria situation in which everyone was trying to obtain a tissue to cover their mouths. Everyone was with that thing in the streets. You could see everybody in the streets wearing the mask. So it became like sort of fashion. Many people were extremely scared. In those times, there were not, or I remember that there were not a panic in the stores. There was no panic. Sorry, there was no panic in the stores. People were not buying or selling things. There were not violent rashes. It was really relaxing. People were afraid. Actually, I can remember. I remember a family party that we had. It was a short thing, and I was talking to one of my cousin's wife, and she was extremely scared. Right, she was completely out of the of I don't know how to say it, but she was extremely scared. She was saying, "Oh my God, my brother just called me and he said that he's in the hospital because he's doing something and people are just dying, right? Caen como moscas." I remember that she said this phrase in Spanish, and everyone was like, "Yeah, really sure. Well, oh my God, no, I'm gonna call my mother and I'm gonna go visit my father because, yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, really? Are you like this? I mean, it is an influenza thing, right? It is like a strong flu. Obviously, it can be dangerous if you do not take the precautions. Uh, but that there are thousands of people dying, well, you will notice it uh, everywhere, right? And people was really relaxing. People took it a little bit more seriously than now. For example, schools were closed. I was studying in the university, and my school was closed. We were just keeping in touch with teachers via email. Back in those days, there was not Messenger, there was not G Suite apps. Cell phones were a little bit more not futuristic. They were not touchy. Uh, we were just keeping touch by email, by Messenger, by computer Messenger, Windows Messenger, which was like the really big thing back in those days. Um, I was working in a museum, and it was the first time that we saw these protocols of cleaning hands, wearing the mask, doing all these things. We stayed in quarantine, in a sort of quarantine, the 40 days, but we stayed in real quarantine approximately between 2 and 3 weeks, right? I had to go to my job because my boss asked me to go. I was the only person that said yes. Imagine I was working in a museum, I was working for the government. So everybody said no. And this boss of me asked me, hey, Pedro, can you please stay with me because I need a person here? And I said, yeah, sure. I mean, well, why not, right? I had no kids, I had no wife. So I said yes, and the only thing that we were doing was, well, staying there, waiting for a call or something. Many people stayed like this in their jobs. It was like, okay, well, now what, right? I took all my books with me as I was studying literature. I had to take all my books, catch up with my readings. So I read all these books. I remember that my boss told me, hey, do you have any movies? I can get a projector and we can fix it up. Actually, we were three, four people. It was my boss, which was an accountant. It was one of my partners, which was the specialist in technology and communication. And it was one guy that was in charge of maintenance. So it was the four of us. And they said, wow, let's watch some movies. And I made a special pandemic movie cycle, which included I Am Legend with Will Smith. It was uh, 20 days later, this Danny Boyle movie about zombies, about the pandemic, and 28 weeks later, which was the sequel, and which was as well about a pandemic and Resident Evil, right? So it was like a sort of a black humor, considering, well, you're in this situation, and as we're Mexicans, well, you can laugh, right? So this was reminding a little bit of April 2009 influenza pandemic. We have the experience, we know what to do. After that, we noticed and we checked, making plus two plus two, and considering all these things, that it was sort of smoke screen, una pantalla de humo, well, for many, many things that the government could do without anyone asking. So it was a little bit like, well, this isn't, it, it is a sort of fraud, isn't it? It is sort of bad joke because it was April, May, and it was an influenza pandemic, right? It was like, yeah, seriously? I mean, this is a stational disease. You could have done this back in November, December. Why right now, right? And it was like sort of a bad joke, like sort of fraud. So this is why right now many people think that coronavirus is a smoke screen too, which is not, right? So I can tell you right now that you must wash your hands. You must, if you don't have to go out to do anything, please don't go out. Stay at home. There's a meme that says that you have the opportunity to save the world by doing nothing. So please don't screw it, and please don't screw it. Okay, well, so take care, don't go out, watch precautions, and see you.